When I begged my husband for money to save our 3-year-old daughter's life, he looked me in the eye, his gaze cold and unyielding, and said, "I don't have room for sick people in my life." Those words cut deeper than any knife. Then, without a shred of remorse, he threw us out onto the streets, leaving me clutching my frail daughter as he slammed the door in our faces. A new woman, his mistress, stood by his side, her presence a cruel mockery of the life we'd built together. But what he didn't know was that his betrayal ignited a fire inside me, a spark of determination that would fuel a plan for revenge. By the next morning, his perfect world had already begun to crumble, piece by devastating piece. My name is Dorothy, and if you had asked me a year ago, I would have told you I was living a dream. At 29, I was married to Adam, a man I believed was my soulmate. We lived in a beautiful home in Houston, Texas, with our daughter, Sophia, who had just turned 3. She was the light of my life, her laughter filling our home like a melody. Our life seemed perfect, or so I convinced myself. Adam was a businessman, always busy, always providing. At 33, he was charming, ambitious, and driven. I was a homemaker, proud of the family we were building, pouring my heart into raising Sophia and creating a warm, loving home. When Sophia came into our lives, it felt like the final piece of our puzzle had fallen into place. I spent my days planning her meals, playing with her, and dreaming of the bright future she would have. Adam worked long hours, but I told myself it was all for us, for our family, for our dream. Sophia was my entire world. At 3, she was a bundle of curiosity and joy, her giggles echoing through the house like music. Her tiny hands always reached for mine, and her bright eyes sparkled with wonder. She was the reason I woke up smiling every day. Adam adored her too, or so I thought. He'd lift her high in the air, calling her his princess, and those moments felt so real, so precious. I clung to them, unaware of the storm brewing just beneath the surface of our seemingly idyllic life. One evening, shortly after Sophia's 3rd birthday, Adam told me he had a big business trip coming up. He kissed me on the forehead, his touch familiar yet distant, and said he'd be away for a few days. It wasn't unusual. His work often took him out of town. I didn't mind. I trusted him completely, believing his long hours and frequent trips were what kept our family secure. But then, everything changed. A few days later, Sophia caught a cold. At first, I didn't think much of it. Kids get sick, right? But her fever spiked quickly, and by the 2nd day, she was burning up, barely able to keep her eyes open. I tried everything, cool compresses, over-the-counter medicine, anything to bring her fever down. Nothing worked. Her little body felt so fragile in my arms, her soft whimpers breaking my heart into a million pieces. I was terrified, my mother's instinct screaming that something was terribly wrong. I called Adam immediately, my voice trembling with panic, hoping he'd rush home to help. "Adam, Sophia's really sick. She has a high fever, and I don't know what to do." His response still haunts me, cold and detached, like a stranger's voice. "I'm about to board a plane, Dorothy. You'll have to handle it. She's probably fine, just give her some medicine." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Adam, it's serious." I pleaded, my voice breaking. "She needs a doctor." His tone grew colder, sharper, like ice. "Dorothy, I'm not canceling a business trip over a little fever. You're her mother, handle it." He hung up, leaving me stunned, holding our sick child who desperately needed help. For a moment, I couldn't move, paralyzed by shock. How could the man I loved, the father of my child, be so dismissive? But Sophia didn't have time for me to process my hurt. She needed me to act. I rushed her to the hospital, praying the entire way, my heart pounding with fear. The emergency room was chaotic, but I begged the receptionist to help us. When Dr. Wilson, a neurologist, finally examined Sophia, his face grew serious. "The fever has caused complications in her brain," he explained, his voice steady but grave. "She needs surgery immediately. It's the only way to save her." My heart dropped. "Surgery? My sweet, tiny Sophia? How much will it cost?" I asked, my voice trembling. Dr. Wilson hesitated. You'll need to pay a $155,000 deposit for us to proceed. $155,000. I didn't have that kind of money. Adam wasn't answering my calls. I texted him, left voicemails, even sent voice messages. I know he saw them because they were marked as read, but he didn't reply. My husband, the man who claimed to love our family, was ignoring us in our darkest hour. I sat in that cold hospital corridor, holding Sophia's limp hand, crying like I'd never cried before. I felt helpless, but I knew I had no choice. I ran home, grabbed my jewelry box, and returned to the hospital. I sold everything: my wedding ring, my mother's necklace, family heirlooms passed down through generations. It still wasn't enough, but I begged the hospital administrator to advance me the rest. By some miracle, he agreed. I handed over the deposit, and Dr. Wilson's team moved quickly. Hours felt like years as I sat in the waiting room, praying for Sophia's life. When Dr. Wilson finally emerged, his small, reassuring smile was like a lifeline. The surgery was successful. She's going to be okay. Relief washed over me, and I fell to my knees, sobbing with gratitude, thanking him and his team for saving my daughter. Sophia was alive, and that was all that mattered. But even in that moment of overwhelming relief, questions gnawed at me. Where was Adam? Why hadn't he cared enough to respond? My heart began to crack, and though I didn't know it then, it was the beginning of the end of the life I thought I knew. When Sophia and I finally returned home from the hospital, I was emotionally and physically drained. All I wanted was to tuck her into bed and rest after the nightmare of the past few days. But as I pulled into the driveway, I noticed something strange. Adam's car was parked there. My heart lifted for a fleeting moment. Maybe he was here to explain, to apologize. Maybe I'd misunderstood his silence during Sophia's crisis. Carrying Sophia in my arms, I approached the door, the lights glowing inside and muffled voices drifting out. Something felt off, but I couldn't pinpoint it. I opened the door, and what I saw stopped me in my tracks. Adam was standing in our living room with a young woman I'd never seen before. She was tall, with perfect hair and a smug smile that made my stomach churn. They were laughing, standing far too close for it to be innocent. Sophia whimpered in my arms, sensing my tension. "Adam," I said, my voice trembling, "who is this?" He turned to me, his expression calm, almost indifferent. "This is Chloe," he said, as if introducing an old friend. "We're together now." For a moment, I thought I'd misheard him. Together? What was he talking about? "Adam," I said, my voice rising with desperation, "I just came back from the hospital with our daughter. Do you even care what she's been through?" "What I've been through?" His response was a dagger to my heart. "Dorothy," he said coldly, "I've made my decision. You and Sophia can manage on your own from now on. I don't need sick people dragging me down." I stared at him in disbelief. Was this really the man I'd built a life with, the father of my child? The room seemed to spin as his words sank in. "You're leaving us?" I whispered, my voice barely audible. Chloe stepped forward, her smile widening. "It's not personal," she said in a sickly sweet tone. "Adam and I have something you don't understand." I couldn't hold back anymore. "How dare you?" I shouted, my anger finally breaking through. "I've been holding this family together while you've been off playing with your girlfriend. Do you even know what I had to do to save our daughter's life? I sold everything: my wedding ring, my mother's necklace, all because you didn't care enough to answer your phone." Adam shrugged, his face expressionless. "That's your problem, Dorothy, not mine." Before I could say another word, he walked to the door and opened it. "You need to leave," he said firmly. "I've already packed your things, they're outside." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "You're kicking us out?" I asked, my voice breaking. "Where are we supposed to go, Adam? This is Sophia's home." "It's my house," he said with chilling finality. "You'll figure it out." Chloe leaned against the doorframe, smirking. "Good luck, Dorothy," she said with mock sympathy. I felt the weight of Sophia in my arms, her little body warm against mine, and that gave me the strength to hold my head high. "You'll regret this, Adam," I said, my voice steady despite the tears streaming down my face. "You're a coward and a liar, and I'll make sure the world knows it." He didn't flinch. "Do what you need to do," he said dismissively, shutting the door behind me, standing outside in the cold night. A mix of fury and despair washed over me. I looked at Sophia, her innocent face unaware of the betrayal we'd just endured. "It's going to be okay," I whispered, more to myself than to her. "We'll get through this, I promise." With nowhere else to turn, I called Grace, my best friend. She answered on the first ring, her voice filled with concern. "Dorothy, what's wrong?" I poured out everything in a rush: the hospital, the surgery, Adam's betrayal, and how he'd thrown us out. Grace didn't hesitate. "Come to me," she said firmly. "I'll meet you at the shelter. You're not alone in this." When I arrived at the women's shelter where Grace worked, she wrapped me in a tight hug. "You're safe now," she said softly. "We'll figure this out together." Over the next few days, I shared every detail with Grace: Adam's sudden coldness, his betrayal, and the way he'd chosen Chloe over his own family. She listened without judgment, her face a mix of anger and sadness. "Dorothy," she said one evening, her voice thoughtful, "I think there's more to this. Adam doesn't just walk away from his family without a reason. Something doesn't add up." I frowned, a flicker of suspicion stirring in my chest. "What do you mean?" I asked, though deep down I knew she was right. Grace leaned forward, her expression serious. "I think Adam's hiding something, and I know someone who can help us find out." That's how I met Ethan, a private investigator Grace trusted. In his early 40s, with sharp eyes that seemed to see right through me, Ethan exuded quiet confidence. "I'll dig into Adam's life," he said. "If there's anything to uncover, I'll find it." I wasn't sure what to expect, but one thing was certain: I needed answers. Adam had shattered my life, and I couldn't let him get away with it. As I waited for Ethan's findings, I focused on Sophia, who was slowly recovering. Her laughter was quieter now, her energy diminished, but she was alive, and that was all that mattered. Still, the anger burning in my chest grew stronger with each passing day. Adam had betrayed us, abandoned us, and I was determined to uncover whatever secrets he was hiding. A week later, I sat in Grace's small office at the shelter, anxiously awaiting Ethan's arrival. My mind raced with questions. What could Adam be hiding? Was his betrayal just the tip of the iceberg? Sophia played quietly in the corner, her soft giggles a small comfort amid the turmoil. When Ethan walked in, his face was grim, a folder tucked under his arm. The weight in his eyes told me he'd found something significant. "Dorothy," he began, setting the folder on the desk, "you need to brace yourself. What I've uncovered isn't just about infidelity, it's much worse." My stomach sank. Grace reached out and squeezed my hand, her silent support grounding me. "Tell me," I said, my voice steady despite the storm brewing inside me. Ethan opened the folder, revealing photos, documents, and transaction records. "Adam and Chloe aren't just having an affair," he explained. "They're business partners, illegal business partners. They've been running fraudulent schemes, laundering money, and funneling funds into offshore accounts." I stared at him in disbelief. "You're saying Adam's a criminal?" Ethan nodded. "He's been doing this for years, likely using his legitimate business as a front. Chloe isn't just his mistress, she's his accomplice. Together, they've built a web of lies and illegal activities." The room felt like it was spinning. This was the man I'd trusted with my life, the father of my child. I'd suspected betrayal, but I never imagined this level of deceit. "How do you know all this?" I asked, struggling to process the information. Ethan gestured to the documents. I traced his financial transactions, interviewed former employees, and dug into public records. Everything here points to their involvement in criminal activities. They've even been under the radar of federal authorities, but so far, they've managed to avoid detection. Grace leaned forward, her voice firm. "Dorothy, this changes everything. Adam isn't just a cheater, he's a criminal. You need to protect yourself and Sophia. We have to take this to the authorities." I nodded, the anger in me boiling to the surface. Adam had destroyed our family, abandoned his child, and now I'd learned he'd been living a double life as a fraudster. What do we do? I asked, determination replacing my fear. Grace and Ethan shared a glance before Ethan spoke. "We start by building a case. The evidence I've gathered is solid, but we'll need more to ensure he and Chloe face justice. You'll need a lawyer, a good one. Grace didn't hesitate. I know someone who can help. Let me make a call. That's how I met Megan, a sharp and determined lawyer in her early 40s who specialized in cases like mine. Her calm confidence immediately put me at ease. Dorothy, she said during our first meeting, you've been through hell, but we're going to turn this around. With the evidence Ethan has collected, we can not only expose Adam's crimes, but also ensure you and Sophia get what you deserve. Over the next few days, Megan and Ethan worked tirelessly to strengthen the case. Megan filed for an emergency order to protect me and Sophia, while Ethan coordinated with local authorities to bring Adam's illegal activities to light. I was overwhelmed by the support I received from Grace, Megan, and Ethan. For the first time since Adam had kicked us out, I felt a glimmer of hope. The turning point came when Ethan orchestrated a raid on one of Adam's business properties with the help of law enforcement. They caught Adam and Chloe red-handed, finalizing a fraudulent deal. The arrest was swift, and the news spread like wildfire. Watching the footage of Adam being led away in handcuffs was surreal. This man, who had once been the center of my world, now looked like a stranger. When Megan called to tell me the charges against Adam and Chloe were solid, I felt a strange mix of relief and sadness, relief that justice was finally catching up to them. But sadness for the life Sophia and I had lost. The court date was set, and Megan assured me we had a strong case. Dorothy, she said, you're going to have to testify. The court needs to hear your story, the sacrifices you've made, the betrayal you've endured. Are you ready for that? I hesitated, the thought of standing in front of a judge and strangers daunting. But then I looked at Sophia, playing happily in the corner of the room, her laughter a reminder of what I was fighting for. Yes, I said, my voice steady. I'm ready. As the trial approached, I steeled myself for the battle ahead. Adam had tried to break me, to destroy our family, but I wasn't going to let him win. With Megan, Grace, and Ethan by my side, I knew I had the strength to face him and ensure justice was served. The day of the trial arrived, and standing outside the courthouse, I held Sophia's hand tightly. Her wide eyes looked up at me, full of trust, reminding me why I had to face this day. It was for her, for our future. Grace and Megan stood beside me, their support unwavering. Moments later, Ethan joined us, his calm confidence reassuring. We've got this, Dorothy, he said. The evidence is solid. As we entered the courtroom, my heart raced. The room's grandeur, with its towering judge's bench and rows of seats, was intimidating. Across the room, Adam sat with Chloe, their lawyers flanking them. Adam caught my eye and smirked, as though it were all a game. I suppressed my anger, focusing instead on Sophia, who was safely seated with Grace in the gallery. The trial began with opening statements. Megan's voice was steady and authoritative as she outlined the case, Adam's betrayal, his illegal activities, and his abandonment of his family. Listening to her, I felt a surge of pride. This fight was no longer mine alone, it was a united effort to reveal the truth. When my turn came to testify, my legs felt weak as I approached the stand. Swearing to tell the truth, I recounted everything, Sophia's illness, Adam's indifference, and the heartbreak of selling my jewelry to save her. My voice trembled as I described returning home to find him with Chloe and his cruel decision to throw us out. The courtroom was silent, every eye on me. Drawing strength from Sophia's smile in the gallery, I answered Megan's questions honestly, holding nothing back. Adam's defense tried to portray him as a misunderstood businessman, claiming I had overreacted and that his relationship with Chloe was a private matter. But Megan was relentless, dismantling their arguments piece by piece, presenting undeniable evidence of his fraudulent schemes. Ethan's meticulous work had left no loopholes. At one point, Megan asked, "Mr. Johnson, why did you ignore your wife's pleas for help when your daughter was critically ill?" Adam squirmed, his charm faltering. "I was busy," he muttered. "Busy with Chloe, perhaps?" Megan pressed, holding up evidence of his luxury resort stay during Sophia's surgery. The murmurs in the courtroom grew louder, and Adam's face flushed red. Chloe's testimony sealed their fate. Under pressure, she admitted her involvement in the fraudulent activities, implicating Adam further. By the end, their web of lies had completely unraveled. Judge Walker, stern and meticulous, reviewed the evidence carefully. Her verdict was firm. This court finds Adam Johnson and Chloe Reed guilty of multiple counts of fraud and money laundering. Their actions were not only illegal, but reprehensible, showing blatant disregard for family and the law. She turned to me, her tone softening. "Mrs. Johnson, your courage in coming forward is commendable. This court awards you full custody of Sophia and all legal assets belonging to Mr. Johnson, excluding those tied to his crimes." Tears streamed down my face as Adam and Chloe received long-term prison sentences. Justice had been served, and the weight of betrayal began to lift. Outside, Grace hugged me tightly. "You did it, Dorothy. You stood up for Sophia and yourself." Ethan, his serious demeanor softened by satisfaction, said, "You've earned this victory." As we drove back to the shelter, peace washed over me. Sophia slept in her car seat, her tiny hand clutching mine, even in her dreams. Grace smiled at me. "What's next for you?" she asked. "A fresh start," I said with determination. "A home for Sophia and me, where we can be safe and happy." In the weeks that followed, small victories brought new hope. Grace helped me find a modest apartment in a quiet neighborhood, a place where Sophia and I could start anew. Megan guided me in managing the assets, ensuring financial security for our future. I began volunteering at the shelter, giving back to the place that had saved us. One evening, as I tucked Sophia into bed, she asked softly, "Mommy, are we happy now?" Stroking her hair, I smiled through tears. "Yes, sweetheart," I replied. "We're happy and safe. This is just the beginning of a beautiful life." That night, sitting in our little living room, I reflected on our journey, the betrayal, the heartbreak, the fight for justice. It had all led to this moment. I wasn't the same woman I'd been a year ago. I was stronger, wiser, and more determined than ever. I looked forward to giving Sophia the life she deserved, filled with love, security, and endless possibilities. For the first time in a long time, I felt truly free, ready to embrace the future with open hearts and unyielding hope. Please feel free to comment below if you liked this. Remember to like and subscribers for more.